Hello, and in this video, I'm going to talk about traveling for work purposes. Now, this can be traveling in Australia or traveling overseas, and there is different requirements of what you do need to have. Mostly, it depends on whether you get paid a domestic travel allowance or a overseas travel allowance as to what records and things you need to keep. So we have a lot of people that will use a domestic travel allowance. So their work sends them, say, to Melbourne for 3 or 4 days, pays them so much per night that they're away. The idea behind getting that domestic travel allowance is that you don't need to keep all of your receipts. So it does make it easier. But the thing that we're finding is that some of our clients and a lot of other taxpayers around Australia, because we're seeing a lot of case law around this, is that people think that, oh, I paid $122, I don't need to keep the record, so I'll claim my $122 as a living cost. You've still got to be able to verify that you spent the money. So you don't have to have the receipts as such, but the tax office is going to want to see that money coming out of your bank account. So remember, when the tax office say that you don't need to substantiate a claim, it just means that you don't have to keep all those physical receipts. So if you go to the cafe for breakfast, you don't have to get the receipt off the cafe and keep it. And then you go to the sandwich shop at lunchtime and get a receipt from them. And then, go to a restaurant or a pub that night for dinner. You don't have to get the receipt. But the tax office is still going to want to see that money coming out of your bank account. So when you claim under the domestic travel allowance, it's not I'm paid $122 a night and I'm claiming $122 a night. If you are only spending $80, then you can only claim the $80 per night, not the $122. And of course, if you want to claim more than that $122 per night or whatever it is for the city that you're in, if you want to claim more than that, you have to keep all your receipts. You can't just say keep the receipts of the amount above the 122 or whatever the rate is. So remember, substantiation just means that you don't have to have receipts. It doesn't mean that you don't have to have evidence that you have spent the money. So if you're not quite sure what you need to have, reach out to us here at 123 Financial Group and we can run through what sort of records you need to keep so that if you are unlucky enough to get an audit, that you know that you're going to be okay. The other thing, if you're traveling overseas, you do need to keep a travel diary, and the requirements for that travel diary and how long you've got to keep it, we can give you all of that if you need any of those sorts of things. So things like parking at the motel, your accommodation, if you've paid for it yourself and your employer hasn't, you can claim all those sorts of things. You've got to remember, particularly with overseas travel, sometimes people will tack a holiday on the end of the travel. And of course, if you were overseas for 50% of the time and then overseas 50% of the time for a holiday, you can only claim 50% of your airfares and the accommodation for the time that you were on work-related, not the accommodation for the time that you were doing personal things. So we quite often hear people say, well, I had to travel there anyway, so I should be able to claim 100% because if I'd come straight back and not had a holiday, I would have claimed the whole lot of the airfare. And you're right, you would have. But the fact that you tacked a holiday onto it means that you need to prorata based on the number of days for what was work-related as opposed to what was the private holiday. So if you have any other questions around travel or your domestic travel allowances and what records you need to keep, please reach out to us and we'll have some fact sheets for you, or we can talk you through what you need to do. And it's always better, of course, to have those records before you get your tax done, because if we get your tax done and you don't have those records and you get audited, you will more than likely be denied your claim. Because there's only certain things that we can claim without the evidence based. Okay, that's all for this video. Reach out to me if you need anything else or have a look around at our other tax time videos that we've put up this year for you. Have a great day.